ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes in the torch of knowledge. Srila Prabhupada was established from this mission that is right about Chaitanya, under his lotus feet. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of my spiritual master and the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisance to the feet of Srila Prabhupada along with his elder brothers Sanatana as well as Raghunath and Raghunath Mehta, Gopala Mehta and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, Srivas, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Shri Krishna, the Lord of Shri Krishna. O my dear Krishna, ocean of mercy, you are the friend of the existence and the source of creation. You are the master of the government and the lover of the world, especially Radharani. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of the world. You are the daughter of Krishna, and you are his heir to Lord Krishna. I offer my respects to the obeisances of the Lord Vaishnava who is before the Lord. They will fulfill the desire of the result of righteousness, and they are full of compassion for the world of souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, and all of devotion. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Devotees, welcome everybody to the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. This week I got some questions from Mohit. Mohit, I got them last night, so today was a bit, we'll work on that. Okay, so chapter 7, I got Karthik's homework. Everybody has to kind of buck up a little bit, okay? So, what happened there, Pana?
I was very busy.
Busy, okay, you're very busy, okay. You're working, yeah, I got your homework, some of the chapters. Bahman, how you doing? You're doing okay, Bahman? Okay. If you feel a little lost, you can ask me questions, okay? Or we can talk some other time, okay. And welcome back, Kamlesh and Mama. Kriti, welcome back. We missed you for 2 weeks, okay, but no problem. We're starting with chapter 8. Has everybody been able to follow the Gita thus far? Until this, what's going on in Gita?
On a very abstract level, not very detailed, but the big ideas are clear.
Okay. Talking about the big ideas, chapter 7 is an interesting chapter where Krishna talks about that how earth, water, air, fire, ether, false ego, mind and intelligence is a separated material energy. And he talks about his superior energy, which is the consciousness, the spirit soul. So he describes himself as the sentient source of both material and spiritual energies. Then he says that there are 4 kinds of people who surrender unto him, 4 kinds of people who don't surrender unto him. And then Krishna explains that because living entities, because of inequitable deeds, they are covered by the modes of material nature. And because of this covering of the modes of material nature, they are not able to see him. Although he's the support of everything, as pearls rest on a thread, people are not able to see him because they have voluntarily chosen to be covered over by the modes of material nature. And he says, if you want to overcome those modes of material nature, you have to surrender unto him. In order to see him, in order to realize him, one has to surrender to Krishna. Then Krishna talks about that those who actually practice bhakti with determination, they have done sukriti in their previous lives and they are free from sinful activities. They are free from dualities of delusion. The brahmacharis, let them be. Prabhu, you come.
They know they'll come.
You come. So So Krishna talks about these dualities born of delusion, attraction and aversion, hate and desire. These dualities cover us by the three modes of material nature, and we're not able to see Krishna, although he lies everywhere. Also, in 7th chapter, not only he described the 8 energies, he gives example of how he can be seen in all of those energies. Earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. 8th chapter begins with Arjuna's inquiry. Arjuna made a very important inquiry. And 8th chapter begins with some very interesting terms which Bhagavad Gita introduces. We have already understood Brahman. Okay? We understand Brahman as the all-pervading spiritual stratum, which pervades everything, which is the source of everything. Here Arjuna asks again, what is Brahman? He also asks, what is karma? What are fruitive activities? What is karma? And then he asks some more questions in the beginning. He says, what is adhibhuta? What is adhyatma? And I know these are Sanskrit words, but they come in the 8th chapter. We'll explain each one of them. What is adhidaiva? What is adhiyagya? Don't worry about the Sanskrit technicality. These words will become clear. Now, this is a very interesting concept to take away from the 8th chapter. And then finally, Arjuna asks, how can I remember you at the time of death? What is the process of leaving this world? What is the process of death? Okay. So, let's see if this works. No, good. What is the process of dying? 8th chapter focuses in very lucid details about death and dying. Death and dying, the process of death. But we'll first discuss these questions, okay? Here in 8th chapter, Krishna also says that the living entity is Brahman. The Jiva is also Brahman. So Brahman can be used in different ways. The spirit soul which is dwelling inside is also called Brahman, as opposed to Param Brahman, which is Krishna. Krishna is called Para Brahman. Para Brahman. So sometimes Brahman is used for Krishna's bodily effulgence, which is the all-pervading spiritual substratum. Sometimes it says Aham Brahmasmi, meaning Brahman refers to the individual soul. Brahman refers to, basically Brahman means spirit. Brahman means spirit. Okay. Karma. Hi, Hari Bol, Prabhu, Hari Bol. Madhu Mangal Prabhu, right?
Yeah, good to see you.
Hari Bol, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Yes, fine, please. Yes. Yes.
Param Brahman and Paramatma is the same.
Yes. Param Brahman and Paramatma. Param Brahman specifically refers to the Bhagavan feature of Krishna. Okay? Okay? Now, Bhagavan, when he is localized as the same Bhagavan, so Srimad Bhagavatam describes Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan as non-dual. It's called Advaya Jnana. Advaya Jnana or non-dual substance. Non-dual substance. Meaning they're all the same, but they are different realizations or different manifestations of the same. Okay, so Paramatma is the localized aspect. Param Brahman generally refers to Bhagavan aspect of Shri Krishna, and Brahman is the all-pervading substratum. Like the sunlight, which is all-pervading, this light is all-pervading, but there is a localized feature of the light. Or fruitive work refers to that work which creates our future bodies. As we act and as we desire, under the supervision of devatas, our future material bodies are being fashioned. When our desires are spiritual, when our activities are spiritual, we receive a spiritual body. So Krishna explains in 8th chapter, karma refers to those activities which creates further material bodies. But Krishna recommends in the 3rd chapter to perform akarma. Akarma. Akarma means which have no reaction. Activities which cause no further bondage. Now, Arjuna asked this question, what is Adhibhuta, Adhyatma, Adhidaiva and Adhiyagya? And I'll explain to you. In the Vedic culture, you will see, let's take the example of river Ganges. Okay? Now, river Ganges. Or let's take the example of Govardhan Hill. Or let's even just take the example of Tulasi plant or cow. Okay? We will take these examples because generally speaking, Hindus or those who are the follower of Vedas, they worship these things. Yes? And it has been a cause of great consternation in the Western mind. How can you worship a plant, an animal, a stone, and water? Krishna explains that any living entity, anything which we see, has an adhi bhautik aspect. This is called bhuta. Bhuta means matter. Bhautik. Physics is called bhautik. Yeah? Bhautik. So adhi bhuta refers to matter. So let's say, for example, Ganges. Yes, it's a river. You can see where it comes from, where it ends. It's a river, it's polluted, it's dirty, blah, 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 blah. That's only the adhi bhautik, bhuta. Bhuta means matter. Adhi bhautik aspect of certain thing. However, the follower of Vedas know that everything has a spirit, indwelling spirit, which is called adhi atma. Adhi atma, bhuta and atma. Atma. So when we think of river Ganges, we think of Ganga Devi, a personified form of Ganges. We call him Mother Ganga, not Ganga river, but Mother Ganges. So you have an adhi atmic aspect of mother, which is Mother Ganga. Okay. Now there is another deeper aspect called adhi daivik. Adhi daivik, Krishna refers that Krishna says, I pervade this entire universe. He shows his universal form to Krishna in the 11th chapter. Krishna explains in the 8th chapter, adhi daivik refers to his universal form through which he pervades the entire universe and which includes all demigods, Devi and Devatas, everything. Basically, in one way, this universe is a body of Krishna. It's the universal form of Krishna. So when we think of Ganges, we talk about Ganges being the water of the causal ocean in which Mahavishnu is lying. You know, that pastime when Vamana extends his foot and there is a hole in the covering of universe, and that Ganges flow into the universe, into the heavenly planets. And then there is this deep pastime to deliver the descendants of, the ascendants of Lord Ramachandra. This Ganges was bought by Bhagirathi into this material world. And that how it's flowing in heavenly planets and it comes down to earth to deliver everybody, because this is the water of the causal ocean on which Vishnu is reclining. Imagine that this is the water of that ocean on which Vishnu is reclining. That water is entering and into the heavenly planet, then it flows onto the earth. So Ganges have an adhi daivik form. Govardhan is Krishna. Tulasi is the topmost devotee of Krishna. And cow is considered to be the abode of 33 million devatas. Meaning, the follower of Vedas, we don't see things on a very material, gross level. Meaning, everything has a very deep, penetrating reality. And unless and until one is very well versed in scripture and see things with Jnana Chakshu, with the eyes of knowledge, he will be deluded. So when we are worshipping these things, we're not worshipping these things as a blind sort of a worship of matter. So Tulasi is very important. Cow. So similarly, and then finally Krishna says, ultimately pervading everything is me, the Lord of the sacrifice, the Lord of the universe, who's the Paramatma in every entity. For example, when we pay respects or obeisances to a devotee, our acharyas explain us, we are paying obeisances to the Paramatma or to the Vishnu indwelling spirit within that person. So I'm paying obeisances, let's say, to Darpan. I'm also paying obeisances to that Jivatma which is within Darpan. I'm also paying obeisances to that Paramatma, the Adhiyagya within Darpan. So when I see Darpan, I don't see Darpan, physical body, I see his Atma, I see Paramatma, I see different features. Of course, when we talk about these entities, because these things are directly related, they are directly related to Vishnu, and this material world is simply a reflection of the spiritual reality, we worship them. So for example, devotees may take Shila, a stone from Govardhan, and worship it as Krishna. They're worshipping, okay, for untrained person it's a stone. For a trained person, it is Adhiyagya, which is Krishna. Questions?
Govardhana is a hill.
Yes.
And where is it?
It is in Uttar Pradesh. It is 20 kilometers, 20 miles from Vrindavan. It's a very sacred hill. It is still there.
And then you said these have a direct relationship with the Supreme Lord. So you talked about Ganga. The first one is the Ganga River.
Yes.
And how the Govardhana, Tulsi and cow directly related?
They may not be, they are related to Krishna. Meaning Govardhan is considered Krishna. It's a long story. But Mohit, Govardhan is considered Krishna. Tulasi is considered in the spiritual reality. After Radharani, it is considered the topmost devotee of Krishna. And she's always serving Krishna. And Tulasi is also in a transcendental way married to Vishnu. Wife of Vishnu is Tulasi. And there is another story. Now there are deep stories about these. Many shastric, scripturally written, very detailed stories about each one of them. You know, but you will find that most of the follower of Vedas would worship these aspects of divinity. Worship of Tulasi is very prominent. Cow is worshipped. Cow, on a material aspect, imagine a machine. You put grass on one end and you get milk on the other end. Imagine a machine, not even grass, you give hay or you give anything to eat which is edible and you get milk on the other end. An animal which doesn't harm anything, you give him something to eat and he'll give you milk. And you can, make so many things from the milk. Cow's urine, very purifying. Cow dung. There were, before fertilizers and chemicals come, cow dung was the fertilizer. Cow, wherever there is cow, there is prosperity, there is peace, there is mode of goodness, there is sattva. Sattva, it is directly related to sattva. Ganges has been studied physically. Although it's polluted, but you will not find bacteria in it. There are natural bacteriophages in it. It's been on this planet for millions of years. Like that. So I just wanted to explain these terms to you. So when you read Gita, you'll be able to understand it better. So this is how the 8th chapter of Gita begins. Anybody can read the verses just real quick.
Prabhuji, one question. So actually in the introduction we read there is Prakriti and also Jiva, like one is not conscious, other is conscious. So here we see some of them are coming into the category of Prakriti, but since they are related to Vishnu, then we have all these four. If we consider some other river, not Ganges, like for example Nile. So then that comes into the Prakriti, that doesn't have any spiritual.
No, Prabhu, that's not true actually. For example, any body of water. Ultimately, everything is connected to Krishna. The rivers in Srimad Bhagavatam are considered to be the veins and arteries in the body of Vishnu. Ocean is personified. We see from Ramayana, ocean came and said, I'm sorry. Rivers are personified. Mountains are personified. Trees are persons. So everything is personified. Everything has an adhyatmic aspect of it. I just gave a few examples to understand that these things are directly related to Krishna. But generally, if you see in original Indian meaning native Indian cultures, African cultures, the respect for rivers, respect for mountains, respect for moon, sun, it was not paganism. Paganism was a term introduced to discredit all of that. So here, this is God, everything else is paganism. Okay, so reading text chapter 8. Please, devotees, please do it quickly.
Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation and what are the demigods? Please explain this to me.
Okay, so here, Kim tad Brahma, Kim adhyatmam, Kim karma, Purushottama, Adi bhutam kim kacha kim proktam, Adhi daivam kim uchyate. This Adhi daivam refers to the universal form of the Lord, Adhi daivik form of the Lord. So, Kartik Prabhu, when I see any mountain, I think of it as Krishna's. Mahavishnu is lying and these are his bones. Mountains on the surface of the universe are the bones of Vishnu. All the water bodies are arteries and veins of the bodies of Vishnu. Ocean is the abdomen of Vishnu. Sun and moon are the eyes of Vishnu. Stars are the turban on the head of Vishnu. Trees, every single tree is a hair on the body of Vishnu. Like that. Okay. Text 2.
Who is the Lord of sacrifice?
Who is the Lord of sacrifice refers to Adi Yagya.
And how does he live in the body? O Madhusudana, and how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death?
Text 3.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activity.
This is an important line. Action which pertains to the development of the material bodies of the living entity is called karma or fruitive activity. Okay. Text. So far you understand it?
So the development of material bodies means.
So action which do not produce further material bodies is called akarma. Akarma. Karma refers to those actions which are materially motivated and they cause future bodies, future embodiment of jiva. Like, we have talked about reincarnation and we have discussed how we transmigrate from the soul, transmigrate from one body to another. As we desire and as we perform our activities, we are causing our future bodies to develop. So when you leave this world, you will simply be given that suit here. This is your next suit based upon your activities and based upon your desire. A field of activity, a kshetra will be given to you. Right, Mohan?
Yeah.
So, but we have also understood what is akarma in the beginning, that we can jump off this assembly line. Okay, continuing forward.
O best of the embodiment beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adhibhuta.
Adhibhuta refers to the physical nature which is constantly changing, material manifestation.
The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of the sun and moon, is called Adhidaiva.
Adhidaiva.
And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Supersoul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adi
Yagya. Adhi Yagya. Meaning I ultimately is the Lord of sacrifice who dwell in every living entity and I am called Adhi Yagya.
And
Text 5 and 6 are probably the two most important verses of Gita.
And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail.
Antakale, at the time of that text 5 Sanskrit, Chamam Eva, Smaran Muktva Kalevaram. This English word cadaver comes from the Sanskrit word kalevar. It's pretty much the same word. One who leaves his cadaver, remembering me alone, yah prayati, he attains some madbhavam. He attains my nature. Yati nasti atra samshaya. Of this there is no doubt. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajanti ante kalevaram. Same word. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So that's why yoga and mental yoga of fixing the mind on divinity is emphasized in Gita. And it is a lifelong practice. Yoga means to fix our mind on Krishna. So, yes.
So, like somebody is very much into deep into meditative, always meditative state, Krishna conscious, but still at the time of death he is not focused into Krishna due to some reason, like that could be due to different reasons. So, what happens to them?
When we talk about bhava, he attains my nature. What in smaran, generally at the time of death, one's mental faculties are disturbed. Most people are unconscious or they have delirium, okay? But we're not talking about just the material reactive mind, but there is something called chitta or consciousness, the sum total of your thoughts and your desires aggregate to take to your next destination. For example, you can behave like anything, but your reality comes out, So it is not just the material reactive mind or the brain which we are talking about. We are talking about deep unconscious, subconscious desires. So whatever desires I have cultivated, whatever bhava I have cultivated, that bhava I will attain without fail. You follow? So it is not that just because I'm unconscious or at the end of my death I think of something. It is usually a resultant vector of my deepest desires, my deepest thoughts, and my deepest beliefs. You follow, Abhishek? So now it is also recommended, that's why that at the time of death, one should be complete. The whole Vedic culture was meant to focus one. Focus. Kings would give up their kingdom and they would go and spend time in meditation and austerities. Why? Because of this. That at the end of life, it should not be about material adjustments. It should be about God alone at the end of life, at least that. So that you can at least, get a higher birth in the next life.
And like the perfect is during the daytime.
In this chapter it comes. That's all in this chapter, in 8th chapter. And Abhishek asked a very good question. What you will see is that after text 6, so let's look at text 7 and Abhishek will continue. Text 7, anybody?
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt.
Now in text 5 and 6, Krishna says, whatever state of being you remember, and whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me, but Krishna says, Arjuna says, I'm here in this battle, so what am I supposed to do? Krishna gives 2 points in text 7. He said, you should do two things. You should think of me in the form of Krishna. And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. What is recommended? 2 things. After text 5 and 6, how to accomplish that? He says, do 2 things. Always think of me in this form of Krishna as I'm standing before you, and carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. Tasmat means therefore. Sarveshu kaleshu, at all times. Mam anusmara yuddhakar. Ultimately, this is the essence of Gita until this point. Mam anusmara yuddhakar. You do all your activities remembering me. Mam anusmara yuddhacha. Mai arpita manobuddhir. With your mind and intelligence dedicated to me. Mai arpita Mano buddhir mamai vaishyasya samshaya. You will come to me. Of this there is no doubt. Asamshaya. He repeatedly underscores asamshaya. Samshaya means doubt. Asamshaya. Don't worry. Don't doubt this process. In text 6 he says asamshaya. In text 7 he says asamshaya.
But Prabhu, like, this point is very awesome and it's good. But for me, speaking about me, when I'm working, when I'm doing some work, I can only do one thing at a time. I can only focus on that work. How can I also think of Krishna? That's a very difficult thing to do.
Again, it is a state of bhava. It is a state of bhava. It is not like, you're thinking and you're thinking of something else. It is a state of consciousness, Shreshtha, and it comes gradually. It gradually comes. A lot of people say that, when I go to work or when I'm doing my things, I am not Krishna conscious. That is because of an inferior stage of devotional service. Inferior matlab, it is like on a scale of 1 to 10, it is like somebody maybe at 3 or 4 or 5. As you advance and as you progress, it is a bhava. It is again not material reactive mind we are talking about. It is about one's totality of being. It is about totality of one's being. That is what is being discussed here. So as one progresses in chanting and hearing and other things, there comes a totality of one's being. For example, you're talking about work. I may be a devotee right now talking about Krishna. I may not be the same with my spouse when I go home. Or I may not be the same when I dream at night. Or I may not be the same when I get up in the morning and I'm irritated. But it is because of my own lack of bhava, my lack of Krishna consciousness. Ultimately, like for example, Prabhupada gave an idea, you put 1 drop of ink in milk, the whole milk becomes that. So as one progresses in Bhakti Yoga, his totality of his being become Krishna conscious. So then his interactions, his job, he knows that he's doing it for Krishna. The motivation, the inspiration, why am I doing, what am I doing, who's the result being offered to, all of that, all of that becomes Krishna conscious. Like you can see, tennis players or people who are materialistically very accomplished, they will be talking, thinking, doing about that particular thing only. They are retired, they are old, they're 85, 90 years old, they're teaching, coaching, commenting, It is like the totality of being is immersed in that particular thing. Prabhupada made one point that Prabhupada and Ravi Shankar, Ravi Shankar was a big guitar player. And Prabhupada and Ravi Shankar were contemporaries and they were both from Bengal and they met. And Prabhupada said that Ravi Shankar practiced guitar for 7 lifetimes before he became this. 7 lifetimes to become this. So the more one engrosses in oneself, and it may not just be an external activity of devotion. I may be externally acting, my mind is somewhere else. I may be working, but I'm actually working for Krishna. My thoughts, my goal, my desires, my dreams, it's all about Krishna. It's like that.
So how do we...
Yeah, Alec?
So far, what my understanding is, coming, like everything is boiling down that what I'm thinking at the time of death. So far, this is from this verse, 8.6. So now here, Krishna says, mind and intelligence fixed on me. So now again, going some chapters back, chapter 6, Krishna says, first you have to know that you are not this mind. You are different than mind and how to make your mind focused. So this looks like a step-by-step procedure, right? So, like for example, at the end of the life, this is your final dead end, right? Death. Before that, make sure that you know that you are not the body. You are not the body. You are the soul, and you are also not the mind. Mind is different. Fix your mind upon me. So to come to that point, also you have to first know that you are the soul, which is like going back. That chapter 2. And in between he talks about karma. So this is all step by step procedure, that first point, you know that you are the soul. Second point, you have this, you have to perform your duties and you are in this body. Then you are not this mind, you have to make your mind train. Then it comes death. So is there, what's like, the point in focusing on death at all? Because if
To summarize, so far you have said that Bhagavad Gita for you, as you're reading, is a sequential process.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Do you have a question, or are you just making
yeah,
comment?
Question.
Okay.
Then what is the point of even understanding this? Like, is it knowing is something, but shouldn't like the emphasis be mostly on that? Okay, first let's take this first step clear that okay, you are the soul. Now like all the practices that brings you to that platform, and then you just work on your mind. So what is the significance of even knowing like things which is like which comes after all those things, like being a soul first? That's like not our number one priority, right?
Yes.
So knowing all these things, is it like not that so much of information here you take everything?
So what is the use of studying this?
No, what is the
Aim of
aim as well as it's like more.
Why is he
information
explaining all these things? That's what I'm
yeah,
trying to
no.
emphasize.
Even Krishna, like so much of information he's giving. Like for some people, if okay, you just first know that you are the soul, that's it. So then so much of information.
No, but then you are the soul. What will you do now with that information? So Krishna, although you are the soul, Alec, why this Gita is spoken is that I'll tell you. Let's say you are the soul, okay? Theoretically understanding this idea, now coming to the realization, you take any living entity, he will perform three kinds of yoga: karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. So Krishna then explains everything very systematically. That first, no, yes, you are 2.11 is that you are not this body, you are the soul. That's how Bhagavad Gita begins. What now to do with this information? Now you do karma yoga. So that's why chapter 3 to chapter 6 were spoken. By the way, it's not that you are not your mind. The mind can be your friend or it can be your enemy. Make your mind your friend in the discharge of the mission of human life. It's not that you are not the mind. Ultimately, you are beyond the mind. But mind is a tool. It's a very powerful, subtle energy. Use it. Use it in my service. And that is called karma yoga. Okay? By doing that, by engaging everything in Krishna's service, by fighting and doing our prescribed duties for him, while our mind and intelligence is fixed on him, once come to the platform of jnana or a platform of knowledge, which is 13.8 to 12. So Krishna then gives knowledge. He talks about modes of material nature. He talks about qualities of a devotee. And Krishna also now is talking about himself. Because people will say, okay, I am the soul, but where is the proof that it is Krishna who do I have to surrender to? So chapter 7 to 12 is actually all about bhakti. Chapter 7 to 12 is directly about bhakti yoga. Krishna says, Antakale chamam eva. So he's talking about a personal relationship. So Gita has different facets, Alec, and Krishna is really explaining these three topics in detail in its various facets. And you will find information which is fascinating. For example, in the 11th chapter, he shows the universal form. Now that is a fascinating subject. Chapter 10 is called the opulence of the absolute, or Vibhuti Yoga, where Krishna explains his opulences. Chapter 9, which will come later, and chapter 8, this is the first time he has talked about death. And you will see in 8th chapter, there are two processes he talks about in death. Okay? So continuing forward, Karthik, you had a question? Briefly, really quick.
Yes. So, like you said that one is in Bhava, so he remembers Krishna while walking, like only in the state of Bhava, always remembers Krishna. You said you can reach that level gradually by chanting and devotion process. Like I'm saying, like
Bhakti yoga.
Bhakti yoga. That's why I'm asking, like, how we
Bhakti. No, not necessarily bhava. This could be interpreted as the state of bhava, but in Brahma Samhita there's a verse here, the bhava bhavita. Bhava means your state of being. Bhava means internal state of being. When I said the word inferior, that don't mind that, Shrishta. What I'm saying is it's a progression. So bhava means my default state of being. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Krishna, just like a 12-year-old boy is spontaneously attracted to a 12-year-old girl, you make my attraction for you like that. Most of us, our natural bhava, you will see, Karthik, is predominated by lording over material nature and over others. Lording over matter. That's our current bhava. To be the master and enjoyer of the matter, and whatever obstructs that, we become very upset about it. That's our current bhava. Our bhava, lording over matter, has to be turned towards service to Krishna. This is the entire sum and substance of this. Is a big process. Lording, that I am the Lord of the matter. I am the enjoyer. This is one idea. Grossly, subtly, it manifests like this. So that's our bhava. That bhava, when it changes to service to Krishna, like that. There is very many pastimes and stories about leaving death. Srimad Bhagavatam describes 34 devotees leaving this world. That is Bhagavatam. What is Bhagavatam? Bhagavatam is a story of 34 people leaving this world. Whether it's Ajamil, whether it's Pandavas, or Kunti, or Bhishma, or Prahlad, or Yogendras, or Gajendra, they are all facing a critical test in their life of death. And how they come to the remembrance of Vishnu is Bhagavatam. Whether it's Indra or Brahma or Gajendra, they're all dying. All of them. All of them have a critical position. In fact, Dhritarashtra's death, Pandava's death, Kunti's death is described very vividly in Bhagavatam. So anyway, continuing forward with Bhagavad Gita. Now Bhagavad Gita talks about, in the remaining part of 8th chapter, about this process of death. Now Krishna says there are two ways of dying. One as his devotee. One as his devotee. As his devotee. And another one who is just a yogi, whether he's dhyana yogi or jnana yogi, but he is not taking shelter of Krishna. Here, this person has taken shelter of Krishna exclusively. What he will do is, he will do compare and contrast. What happens? So we'll continue with the 8th chapter. So Krishna says in text 7, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. We will skip 8, 9 and we'll go to 10.
One who at the time of death fixes his life here between the eyebrows, and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord with full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of God. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. So Krishna will explain this process of how a yogi leaves this world. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets.
And now Krishna will talk about a bhakti yogi in text 14.
For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pratap, because of his constant engagement in devotional service.
Ananya cheta satatam, without any other deviation, yo mam smarati nityasaha, one who remembers me always, tasya aham sulabha partha, I am easy to obtain because nitya yuktasa yoginaha, he is always engaged in yoga. And text 15, Krishna says,
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection.
Mam upetya, to text 15 Sanskrit, Mam upetya punarjanma dukhalayam ashashwatam. This is the first of the three times Krishna says to this material world, Mohit, that this material world is a place of misery and suffering. It is dukhalayam. Dukhalayam, it is ashashwat, it is temporary and it's miserable. Three times Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita the same thing. That this is ultimately dukha doshanu darshanam. You're going to find suffering here. But if you come to me, you do not return to this temporary world. Text 15. Text 16, 17, 18 is Vedic cosmology which we have discussed. Briefly we will read it.
From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
So somebody may think, well, maybe there is no misery for Indra or Brahma or for Donald Trump. That's all nonsense. Everybody is suffering. And now Krishna just explains a little bit of Vedic cosmology which we have discussed.
By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night.
1,000 ages. This age refers to the Mahayuga. The combination of 4 yuga is Mahayuga. 1,000 of one Mahayugas is Brahma's day, and 1,000 of Mahayugas is Brahma's night.
At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state. Thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, we are helplessly unhappy.
But now Krishna says there is another abode of mine. Krishna very graphically describes a spiritual world. It is not like an ethereal phenomenon. He describes it very concretely in Gita that there is a spiritual world which is my abode. Text 20.
Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is.
Continue to describe the glory of that word.
That which the Vedantas describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which having attained it one never returns, that is my supreme abode.
And how to attain that supreme abode is text 22.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion.
So Krishna says Purusha. Purusha means himself. Saparaha, the topmost, O Partha, Bhakti labhastu ananya. By ananya bhakti, you attain that abode.
Although he is present in his abode, he is all pervading and everything is situated within him.
Continuing onward.
O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back.
So Abhishek, to your auspicious periods for a yogi who has closed the senses, who has fixed his mind on one point, uttering Omkara, he has brought up his soul to the Sahasra Kamal lotus. Now, what he has to accomplish to go back to Brahman. Otherwise, he comes back. This is about that yogi who's practicing yoga.
Those who know the Supreme Brahma attain that supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fairy god in the light, an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north.
Okay, so these are all devatas. They are all deities. So fiery god is Agni. When the sun travels in the north, according to the scientific conception, sun is situated in one place. According to Vedic cosmology, the sun travels 6 months in the north and 6 months to the south. Uttarayan and Dakshinayan. So this Uttarayan is auspicious. Dakshin means south, Uttar means north. So those 6 months when the sun travels to the north, when the moon is waxing, when there is fiery god, Agni is predominant. These are sort of planets which are predominant in your horoscope. In the light, I think I forgot what it refers to. So what happens is these deities, they assist the passage of the soul to higher and higher planets. It's like a station. You leave, you have now become accomplished in yoga. The sun, the moon, the Agni, all of these, they help you attain Brahman. Text 24. Text 25, but what happens to the one who's not so fortunate?
The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet but again comes back.
He at most goes to the moon, Chandrama, and then he comes back. He cannot go above higher than that.
According to Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back. But when one passes in darkness, he returns.
Now Krishna is telling Arjuna, this is all too technical. I know you guys are thinking, what is this? Now text 27 is a summation of everything.
So the yogi can, even when he goes to Supreme Brahman, he does not come back because he went in light.
Those who pass away at an auspicious time, the moon, Agni, sun, they aid him to get to Brahman. Those who do not are so fortunate, at most they can go to moon and they have to come back.
But before we had discussed that whoever goes to Brahman has a tendency to come back.
That is a whole separate discussion. That is a separate discussion. That what happens after they attain Brahman. That's a separate discussion. But in 27, Krishna describes the position of a bhakti yogi. What happens to him?
Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion.
Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, text 27, yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Krishna is telling Arjuna that for devotees, whether it's sun training in the north or south, all of these technical details are ultimately irrelevant. Krishna says in chapter 8, I will personally come on my Garuda and I will take the devotee. Whether he dies in accident, whether he dies in disease, whether he dies remembering me. Ramanuja was asked one time, what happens if a devotee who has done bhakti, he passes away and he doesn't remember you at the end? And Ramanuja replied, then Krishna remembers him. Krishna remembers even a little bit of devotional service rendered. So, yes, there is this technical path which is without the assistance of Krishna, and there is another path of yoga, of bhakti yoga, that although the devotees know these two paths, they are not bewildered by this. There are some devotees who can leave at their will, like Bhishma. Krishna is personally present and he waited until the most auspicious time came and he left. There are certain yogis like that. But yogis, by the strength of yoga, determine when they want to leave or not. Continuing onwards, last verse.
Person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all this, and all the end of reaches the supreme eternal abode.
A person, so Vedeshu, Yagyeshu, Tapesu, Chaiva, Danesha Yat Punya Phalam Prashtam, Atyetita Sarvamidam Viditva, Yogi Param Sthanopati Machadyam. Krishna is saying, my devotee, by practicing bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Krishna says, just remembering me is so powerful that all of these other activities, studying the Vedas, performing Yagya, Tapasya, Danam, philosophical and fruitive activities refer to those activities which are mentioned in the Vedas. You should do this Yagya, that Yagya. He says, simply by performing devotional service, he attains all this, and at the end, he reaches my supreme eternal abode.
Devotee.
So in the 8.26,
826.
Krishna says, according to Vedic opinion,
Uh-huh.
And then again in 8.28, he talks about these Vedas. It looks like there is a separate system for Krishna's own.
You are right. Absolutely right. And that's why Krishna speaks 232 to 239. Just read that, Mohit. Krishna in the second chapter. So text, open text 42. 242. So Mohit, I want you to read this 242 to 49. In the second chapter, Krishna explains that there are actually two tracks. There is a categorical tract and a preliminary tract. The Vedic process is a preliminary tract. Read 242, 43 very carefully.
Okay. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruities activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good fun, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense, enjoyment, and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to Supreme Lord does not take place. The Vedas deal mainly with the subjects of three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. All purposes served by small wealth can only be served by a great reservoir of honor. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause or the results of your activity. Never be attached to not doing your duty. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachments to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. And then 40.
Yeah.
O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distanced by devotional services, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work.
Keep reading.
By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries.
Read 52 and 53.
When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard.
This is referring to Vedas. When your intelligence has passed away from this forest of delusion, you will become indifferent to what has to be heard and what is to be heard. Read 53.
When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness.
Read chapter 15, text 15. Finally, I want you to read that. Chapter 15, text 15. 15. 1515. And page number?
6 or 7.
Yeah. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. I am all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
Sarvasya chaham hridaya sannivishta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedascha sarva aham evo vedya. The whole purpose of Veda, whole purpose of knowledge is to know me. Vedanta krit Veda vid chaham. I am the compiler of the Vedas, I am the knower of the Vedas, period. So this Vedic track and Bhakti track are sort of two different tracks. There may be some overlap between the two. So you made a very, very good cogent analysis. I would like you guys to read the commentaries of the second chapter of the verses we just read. So you will understand the difference between the two. That is what Krishna is also again mentioning in the 8th chapter.
I'm trying to make a point saying that humanity has been there for such a long time. So the Vedas have been there. So when Krishna comes in, tells them don't believe the Vedas, what I am saying is going to the devotional self, the bhakti state.
Yes, your intelligence, when it has passed through this dense forest of delusion,
Right.
then you will become indifferent to what has to be heard. Devotees, those who are real devotees of the Lord, they are beyond the Vedic rules and regulations. The bhakti is beyond Vedas. That is what is being spoken in the very beginning, and Krishna speaks that again and again in Gita. Like in the 8th chapter, he explains, yes, there is a path, there is a Vedic path of Surya, of Chandrama, of Agni, of the fiery god, of the light, of all of these things. And then there is a path which is not so good. You may go almost up to the moon. Another path will take you to Brahman. But Krishna says everything is temporary. So you come to me directly. And those who come to me, and Krishna says, Bhavami cha chiram partha, I forgot that verse, Mrityu samsara sagarat. I will come very quickly for you and I'll take you back. That is the best process. We'll continue with chapter 9. Yes, Shrishna.
In the last verse, it says that devotee, when in the path of devotional service, does not undergo austerity. But in process of devotional service, we do try to eat less, we do try to sleep less, we do try to voluntarily do some austerities, like Ekadashi we do, then Chaturmasya some people do. So then, why?
What is referring to that a devotee does not do austerity? You read that in the purport?
Yes,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
It's not bereft.
Oh, no. What here it is saying is that, let's say somebody says, well, you know what? I'm chanting Hare Krishna, but I'm not really going into the Himalayas and living in the caves or submerging myself in Ganga, or I'm not really doing this or that which other people are doing. So maybe my path may be inferior. He may think, I'm not doing Ashwamedh Yajna, I'm not doing fire sacrifices, I'm not doing all of these things. So maybe my path is inferior. Now your question is that we do perform austerities. We do not perform dry austerities. These austerities for the sake of austerity. Austerity for the sake of pleasing Krishna, and Krishna gives us tremendous amount of happiness and joy in the heart. That is our bhakti process. You know, you had nice prasadam. Now we are reading Bhagavad Gita. Our austerity is basically just getting up in the morning and chanting Hare Krishna. That's really the austerity. And following Ekadashi. Following the practice of Ekadashi. There is no real austerity involved. Service is blissful. We have to work with our senses, our mind and heart, you know. Ekadashi, now there is science is talking about intermittent fasting. You can type on Google intermittent fasting. 10 years ago, they used to say you should eat 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 small meals a day. Now they are saying, no, once a day is good enough. And fast the remaining time. It's called intermittent fast. Best treatment for diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease. So Ekadashi is a very, very scientific process. So that's really our austerity. Getting up in the morning, chanting Hare Krishna, doing Ekadashi. That's our austerity. Okay, continuing now to Shrestha's point, Krishna says in 9th chapter, text 1, text 2, we'll start with text 2. Krishna says,
No, anyway.
This knowledge.
he says that there is no austerity, it is joyfully performed from beginning to end.
You're going to read, okay. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge and because it is given directly, direct perception of the self by realization. It is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed.
Raj Vidya, it is the king of all knowledge. Why it is king of all knowledge? It is pure. Idam Uttamam. Idam Uttamam. It is the highest. Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam. It gives you direct perception of religion. Susukham Kartum Avayam. And it is joyfully performed and it is inexhaustible. What the knowledge which Krishna is going to give in the 9th chapter, most important chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Text 3, Krishna says, demands a little investment of faith.
Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world.
Krishna now gives us analogy of sky, that he's all pervading, everything is in him, but he's still separate. He has a dominion over everything. Text 4, 5 and 6.
By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. 5. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. Understand that as the mighty wind, blowing everywhere, rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me.
So, probably, what's the unmanifested form?
Brahman.
Where?
In the text 4?
By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me and I am not in them. Let's read the purport of that. Alec, you want to read the purport of this verse?
Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not perceivable through the gross material senses. It is said, Lord Sri Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, etc. cannot be understood. Lord Sri Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, etc. cannot be understood by material senses. Only to one who is engaged in pure devotional service under proper guidance is he revealed. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, always within himself and outside himself, if one has developed the transcendental loving attitude towards him. Thus, for people in general, he is not visible. Here, it is said that although he is all pervading, everywhere present, he is not conceivable by the material senses. This is indicated here by the word avyakta murtina. But actually, although we cannot see him, everything is resting in him. As we have discussed in the 7th chapter, the entire material cosmic manifestation is only a combination of his two different energies, the superior spiritual energy and the inferior material energy. Just as the sunshine is spread all over the universe, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation, and everything is resting in that energy. Yet, one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. To refute such an argument, the Lord says, I am everywhere, everything is in me, but I am aloof. For example, a king heads a government, which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king, and each department is resting on the king's power. But still one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. This is a crude example. Similarly, all the manifestations that we see and everything that exists both in this material world and in the spiritual world are resting on the energy of Supreme Personality of Godhead. The creation takes place by the diffusion of his different energies, but as stated in Bhagavad Gita, he is everywhere, present by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energy. 3 points
Srila Prabhupada makes. Unmanifested means, number one, we cannot see him with our present blunt material senses. And second, as Shrestha said, as Brahman, he pervades everything, he is the support of everything. like an example of a king or an example of sunshine. Okay, so continuing onwards, where did we left off?
Text 7.
Text 7.
O son of Kanti, at the end of millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again.
9.7. Come.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, text 8, 9, 10, Krishna talks about, we may think material phenomenon to be independent of God. It is happening by certain laws, but behind the law, there is a lawmaker. That these things may be happening randomly because we cannot see. A little child, if you tell him this electricity comes from this powerhouse, he cannot comprehend that idea. So, text 8, 9, 10.
The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated as at the end.
So this creation and destruction of universe is under Krishna's will. Okay, text 9.
O Dhananjaya, all this work can't find me. I am ever detached from these material activities, seated as though neutral.
Text 10. This Maya Dakshina, there was some question, Darpan? Yeah. Abhishek, let's continue. I'll take the question at the end. Okay? I want to kind of just show you some of the important parts of 9th chapter. This 9.10 is an interesting verse. Maya Dakshina Prakriti. Adhyakshmak means the superintendent. This entire material nature, everything in the universe, it says every blade of grass moves by God's will. Krishna says, I am the superintendent of Prakriti. Suyate sa characharam. Hetu nanena kaunteya. Jagat viparivartate. This material nature, which is one of my energy, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. In text 11, Krishna makes another point. But when I do descend in my human form, then what do people do? Text 11.
Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme of all that be.
If you read Prabhupada's purport carefully, he gives many ideas. But one of the objections people has is, how can you limit God to a certain form or a personality or a name? Krishna says, Avajananti mama muhura manushyam tanum ashritam. When I come in manushya form, manushyam tana, then mudha, they deride me. They said that this person cannot be God. Prabhupada writes a 6-page purport to that. Text 12. To such people, text 12.
Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and aesthetic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their future activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated.
As opposed to text 13 and 14, those who realize Krishna's dominion.
O son of Partha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Continue.
Yeah, please.
Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form.
Text 16 till almost the end of 9th chapter, Krishna now describes himself that how he pervades this entire universe and how he is the Lord of sacrifice. Text 16.
Who wants to?
But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am butter and the fire and the offering.
Now this verse talks about the process of yajna or process of performing any sacrifice. Krishna identifies himself with different aspects of it. For example, these devotees are distributing books, getting a van, loading the books in the van, getting the gas in the van, traveling to different places, distributing books, keeping scores, ordering books, maintaining a balance account, filling their van with bhoga, cooking for themselves. All of these are different activities, different components of sacrifice. Krishna says, but it is I who am the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, and the transcendental chant. Krishna identifies himself with chanting twice in Bhagavad Gita. Once here and once later on, he says that of all sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy name. And here he says, it is I who am the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. When you make an offering, you put oblation of ghee in the fire. He says all of those different elements is me. One of the things is, as we make our sacrifice, as you get up, pack your lunch, pack Alex's lunch, go to work, drive, do different duties, to see different elements of one sacrifice all during the day, to see as Krishna. Whatever sacrifices we do in our daily life, our daily duties, prescribed duties, to see each austerity, each sacrifice, to see that as Krishna is a very big step forward in Krishna consciousness. Whatever little duties, conveniences, inconveniences come, think of it as a sacrifice to Krishna.
One question we got on YouTube Live. What does as diverse in many mean in text?
Yes, this is a very philosophical verse, Prabhu. So here Krishna sometimes throws in something and I try to gloss over it so that nobody will pick up on it. Others who engage in, okay, so let's go to understand text 15, we have to go to the two texts prior to that. Krishna talks about his devotees who are not deluded, who are the great souls, and who are under the protection of divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service. What do? Always chanting his glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me. So these are the devotees. But what about the non-devotees? Others. So that's how others begin. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge. Cultivation of knowledge refers to impersonal aspect of Krishna, the Jnanis who aspire for Brahman, which were also described in the 8th chapter. Worship the Supreme Lord, now there is a second category mentioned. One is the Jnanis who aspire for Brahman. Second is worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. Some worship Krishna in his universal form. They do not accept the personal aspect of Krishna. They say, yes, God is there, but he's all pervading. He's everywhere. As diverse in many. Some say all of the Devi Devatas are ultimately manifestations of Krishna. Generally, they worship Panchopasana, 5 deities: Vishnu, Ganesha, Shiva, Surya, Vishnu, Ganesha, Shiva, Surya, and Durga. As diverse in many, and one without a second. So there is another kind of people who worships that. So he who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worship him. He says, this is the Supreme.
Like deity worshippers?
No, not deity worshippers. See, deity, the form is an eternal form of the Lord. But let's say somebody says, my neighbor is God. There are a lot of people who will tell you that this person is God. So they make up an imaginary form and worship him.
So indirectly they are still worshipping him.
Let's read.
And he who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarupa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worships that. Out of the above three, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists, are most predominant. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord, and in this mentality they worship themselves. This is also a type of God worship, for they can understand and they are not the material body but are actually spiritual soul. At least such a sense is prominent. Generally the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way.
Okay, so the first category was impersonalists, those who themselves want to worship God as their own.
The second class includes the worshippers of the demigods, those who by imagination consider any form to be the form of the Supreme Lord.
Now these people generally will tell you that no, it's not Krishna you have to worship. You can concoct and make up a form. And by the way, all the Devi Devatas, especially they worship these five: Surya, Agni, Vishnu, Durga, and Shiva. And they say that all of them are equal. So that's the second class.
And the third class includes those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be the supreme organism or entity and worship that. The universe is also a form of the Lord.
So Krishna now explains three categories of worshippers. But then Krishna says, let them worship. They eventually worship me. Why? Because it's I who am the ritual. I am the fire, I am the sacrifice, I am the butter, I am the offering. So ultimately, they're all worshipping me alone. So this is how this verse is interspersed in middle. Okay? Hopefully our audience is satisfied. Text 16. We'll finish in the next 5 minutes.
But it is I who are the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant, I am the butter and fire and the offering.
Now here Krishna says, Pitaham asya jagato. I am the father of this universe. Then he says, Mata, Dhata, Pitamaha. Again Pita comes. The mother, the support and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier and the syllable Om. In Gita, Krishna at least says 5 times that he's Om. I am also the Rik, Sama and the Yajur Vedas. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, and the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. O Arjuna, I give heat and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, they worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. When thus they have enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. In contrast to that, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Whatever a devotee lacks materially or spiritually to come to Krishna, Krishna carries all of that. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. Avidhi purvakam. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature, they ultimately fall down.
Those who are devotees of other gods and worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way.
Avidhi purvakam.
So here,
okay, we'll stop here. We'll finish the 9th chapter. So go ahead, Prabhu.
So previously there was one like whoever does. There are a couple of questions, but one question is coming back to my mind. I forgot the rest of them. So there was one instance where we say that who at the time of death who remembers me that he attains my abode. So in the same way, like there are some people like even if they are doing something wrong, they still utter the name. Like in the different form, like we say, like those who are terrorist kind of people, they also utter
Terrorist kind of people?
Yeah. So they also commit crime, and they in their form they in the Brahman or whoever they worship, they attain that mindset and they fix their mind on that. So how that is different from this, or it is also the same, or they also attain what they're trying to.
So you said a few things. You talking specifically about, like you mentioned the word terrorism.
Yes.
You talking about terrorists saying,
Anything who is doing wrong, but he thinks in his mind, he's like, that is what he wants. But he thinks he's dedicating that
yes.
to...
So first of all, their worship is in the mode of ignorance. Tamo guna. Shruti smriti puran adi. Pancharatrim vidhi vina. Ekantik harer bhakti utpat eva hi kevalam. Scriptures describe that form of worship which do not take into account guidance from Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, which is not scripturally ordained, is simply a disturbance, unnecessary disturbance in the society. So, Prabhu, people in the name of God can do anything, but that's not real bhakti. What they get is they get hell for that. Those who torture and injure others in the name of God, they have a very, very dark destination. Their destination is dark in our front, and their destination is very dark. So God worship has to be authorized. You are talking about name, right? Parrot can also chant a name, a tape recorder can also chant a name. That name is not pleasing to Krishna. Somebody may call my name, but in my name do wrong things. What will I do to him? So, in my name, call my parts and parcels, kill my parts and parcels. So that is actually worship in Tamoguna. It comes in the 18th chapter. Faith in different aspects, in goodness, passion, and ignorance. In ignorance, people generally have faith in demons, ghosts, spirits. They will make some kind of person to be their God. That's ignorance. Faith in passion is generally, faith in passion is, I forgot. Faith in goodness is generally Devi Devata. That's good faith. And then faith in Vishnu or Krishna is transcendental, nirguna faith. Divisions of faith, divisions of determination. So all of this thing, which is not scripturally ordained. Alec, that answers Alec's point. Why do we study Gita? Why do we study the books written by acharyas? What is the purpose? Is to really understand what God consciousness is.
So again, so last point, the purpose, right? The purpose of reading Gita, the purpose of life. So then so many things matter. That okay, the purpose of life is to remember Krishna at the end of death. Is that the purpose? Or
Yes.
the purpose of the life is to understand that we are not this body, we are the soul.
Arat Baba, Alec. First you have to understand that you are not the body, you are the soul. Okay. Now with this information, if I am the soul, okay, there are one thing. Matter, I know from experience, is temporary. I know from experience is temporary. Spirit is permanent. Now I have understood this. That means, okay, I should also do something spiritual in addition to my material life. This is sort of the first step. Then people understand through Bhagavad Gita, through authorized scriptures or the Vedas, that I am consciousness and I am part and parcel of supreme consciousness. Now, some people call him Brahman, some people call him Paramatma, some people call him Bhagwan, some people call him something else. Krishna acknowledges that, even worship of Devi Devatas, he says, I make their faith steady. So they, by the association of devotees, they may come to this platform of Krishna consciousness. And they begin their spiritual journey. They begin their spiritual journey. And it is a journey. It is a long journey. It's a long journey in which scriptures are like the favorable wind, which propels us in our journey. This understanding propels us in our journey. Kind of like that. Yes, ultimately, if one comes to this idea that, yes, I'm completely surrendered to Krishna, you don't need any books. No books, no scriptures. By the way, this is given in the Vaishnava scriptures. If you can chant without offenses, if you can Shuddhanam, then no scripture, no book, no class is needed. If you can chant Shuddhanam, nothing else is needed. You follow what I'm saying, Alan? You understand what I'm saying? No book is needed then. This is for us to develop our faith. Shuddhanam, one who's chanting, he doesn't need any books or anything.
And how can we chant Shuddhanam?
Right, so that's the process, that journey is there. Studying and reading Bhagavad Gita every day as a daily practice is a very powerful spiritual practice to keep our consciousness focused on Krishna. Studying and reading Bhagavad Gita is one of the most powerful methods of spiritual practices. For millennia, Darpan, for 5,000 years at least, and now Krishna says, I spoke it to sun god, and sun god spoke it to Vivaswan, Vivaswan gave it to Manu. So this is going on for billions of lifetimes. So these verses are to be meditated on. Okay?
So,
Yes, Prabhu.
then there was a verse where it was said that at the end, every spirit and material annihilates in me.
Yes.
Then I recreate.
Correct.
So
Correct.
why? I mean, why to create? I mean, I understand that from the previous chapters that we understand and have the understanding that because we have the desires, that's why we get created to enjoy that
Yes.
material life. But why do we even exist? Is there anywhere it
Yes, the Vedas explain we exist for rasa. That Krishna created all of us for different rasas, different varieties of enjoyment.
But initially, like when one annihilates, that we don't even exist, right? Because everyone's merged.
We are in the unmanifest state in the body of Mahavishnu. The entire universe in its unmanifested state resides in the body of Vishnu. But the jivas have latent desires.
But jivas don't exist at that point of time.
They don't exist, but they are in an unmanifest state. It's not that they don't exist. The soul is eternal. So the soul and the subtle body, it exists in the body of Vishnu. When Brahma goes to sleep, there is a partial annihilation. When Brahma dies, the universe is over, it goes and merges back into the body of Mahavishnu. We remain in an unmanifest state. You can just think that God is very kind and He gives us unlimited chances. It is like that.
Like a seed.
We remain in a seed state, we remain in an unmanifest state in the body of Vishnu. And then the creation happens again. So it's like expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction.
But still, I mean, why spirit is like one spirit is different from another, and when it merges, then it divides like one spirit.
They don't merge, they all remain individually in the body of Vishnu. The spirit, individual spirits always remain individual according to Gita. Nityo nityanam, chetanas chetananam. Krishna says, Natve vaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadhipa, na chaiva nabha vishyam sarve vayamata param. There was never a time when you, I, any of these cease to exist, nor there will ever a time where we will cease to exist.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I read before, but even that to imagine and to just to have that, how is that possible? That just seems like how.
Of course, it's incomprehensible by material senses, definitely. This whole process of creation, destruction, Mahavishnu, Vishnu, the navel, the Brahma, the planetary systems. I mean, in one way, the city of Columbus is incomprehensible. Look at this beautiful buildings and roads, and ocean is incomprehensible. Sky is incomprehensible. Stars are incomprehensible. Is it comprehensible, the stars? The sun. Imagine an entity, a planet which we don't know much about. We know that there is this unlimited billions of hydrogen reactions going on, and it is illuminating an entire solar system. Galaxies. Then you have galaxies. Then you have millions of galaxies with their millions of solar systems. I mean, this is an ocean. Go in front and stand in front of ocean. I look at the waves and I look at the ocean and I am like, what is this? Huh? So this whole thing is incomprehensible.
then one more question. Like there, it said before, like by the gradual process, you can attain like a consciousness that at the time of death your mind will be focused in me. It's like subconsciously, not like
Reactive mind.
Yeah. So that way, but it is not like at the childhood we all more focused, and then gradually, like when we go into material world, we take steps like just for the survival. We change ourselves, otherwise we won't be here. We make bad decisions. We have to make for our survivals, and that's why it slowly starts corrupting us. It's not like the innocence or whatever we were at the time when we were a kid. We were more innocent. We were more focused in God. So that was more pure state of mind. Like that is, you can imagine from now to that point, that itself feels like you were more close to God. And now you are more getting distance yourself.
Externally you are closer, but those latent desires are there. And until and unless you reach adulthood, you won't get the field of activity to express your desires. Those desires are there in the body of a child, but they are latent. So Jesus Christ also said, you to get to the kingdom of God, you have to be childlike. That innocence, that simplicity, that purity. To regain that is the purpose of life. But those desires are there within the body of a child. It's just that he's not physically capable of expressing themselves.
So, process is again to come back to the same state by doing the.
To become innocent again, yes. To become pure, simple, uncomplicated again. Yes, many spiritual texts, they talk about becoming childlike. Okay, Hari Bol Prabhu, devotees, Hare Krishna, good night.
The next verse is actually pretty important. 926, that offering leaf, food.
Yes.
That's what my question was. If you can explain that why meat eating is considered as sin, but if
Next week? Okay.
plants and everything also have life.
Should we do it on the forum?
No,
I think next week.
Next week.
Start.
Devotees, you will get the most out of Gita if you now go back and read the purports and how they relate to the verses.